Welcome to Too Deep, Hokies Under the Influence. And it is Virginia Tech. This isn't some rinky-dink-ass program.
Come on, JC.
We're going to put this old guy in the grave. We'll go over some of the stats really fast. It's the percent. 11.
It's an 11 game.
Welcome to Too Deep, Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. I'm your host for the night, Sam Jesse. PP is on vacation for a little bit, and I have a very special guest tonight, all the way from the West Coast, Mr. Tyler Budge. You might know him on social media as @CFBudge. Tyler, thank you so much for joining the show as we preview the 2025 college football season.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Sam. I will try to fill Pete's shoes as best as I can.
Well, I mean, you're definitely somebody who can talk college football. You have almost 13,000 followers on X, over 17,000 followers on Instagram, and over 130,000 followers on TikTok. First off, I'll just ask, how did you do that, and why are you doing this?
Yeah, I think honestly the key to growing on any platform, it's all going to start with passion. You got to be passionate about what you're talking about, and just consistently uploading. And if you have passion and you're working on your quality all the time, it's going to be something that reflects in your work, and people are going to take notice. And basically, why am I doing it? I am a college football sicko, like I'm sure many people are out there, at least anyone listening to this, definitely a lot of people online as well. It's all stuff I was doing in my free time anyways, before I ever had a platform, writing about stats, researching random niche college football things, all that. It was just how I grew up. And so eventually I went to journalism school, and I just realized, there's a platform to be had and a platform to be made out there. So I haven't even been doing it for that long. It's only been, I think this will be our third year in October, officially 3 years. So it's been pretty awesome and cool how things have blown up. But yeah, it just comes from a place of pure passion, basically.
Beautiful. We love that. So I said you're a West Coast guy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're an Arizona State guy, correct?
Yeah, so I went to Arizona State. I was born and raised in Oregon, up in a place called Gresham, Oregon. Probably no one on the West Coast has heard of that, but it's near Portland. So I grew up an Oregon State Beaver. I still am an Oregon State Beaver, but Arizona State alum. That's where I graduated. So I'm Big 12 country now. Started as Pac-12 country, Now we're Big 12 country, but still counts as the West Coast. I had someone earlier today tell me that the Cowboys that are in Arizona, aren't real Cowboys or whatever, like they're only in Texas. I thought that was pretty blasphemous. Yeah, I was like, I feel like, Southwest, like Arizona Cowboy vibe. I feel
That's
like
very Cowboy. Well, I'll tell you, we're a big Oregon State podcast as well. I will occasionally wear my I'm a Beaver Believer home field shirt on the pod. So if you see that, and I will also say, I thought Arizona State, I thought they were going to be a little bit better last year. I did not anticipate making the college football playoff. I'm sure you didn't either, but let's just jump right into that one, because I thought Arizona State was a team going into last year that had such a good offseason. Like, it was all positive news. They loved getting Sam Levitt in there. They kept a bunch of guys. Who is a team that won the offseason this year, just like your Sun Devils did?
Yeah, and that's the $1 million question. Sometimes it can be hard to identify, because it sounds like you were high in Arizona State. There might have been some people that fixated on, well, they lost Jaden Rashada, their 5-star. Oh, well, they lost Elijah Badger, a top wide receiver. And there were some people that thought they had lost the offseason. Same with a team like Indiana. So it can be tough to identify who won the offseason, but I definitely have a few teams in mind. For me, my number one, top dog team that I instantly think of if somebody's talking about that, it's going to be the Oklahoma Sooners, which might surprise some people. And if you're looking at the odds right now, I think their over-under win total is 6.5. Vegas does not agree. Vegas didn't agree with Arizona State last year either. But I look at them. They have such a high defensive floor. They were such an excellent defensive team last season, despite all the dysfunction they had on offense. And it showed with that upset over Alabama, that 24-3 upset. That was just a microcosm of what they're capable of in the defensive side of the football. They add a guy in John Mateer that could be a Heisman Trophy contender this season. All the skill players, Jaden Ott, I love Ben Arbuckle, their new play caller from Washington State. There's a lot of really awesome things on that side of the football. And I don't care that they have a really tough schedule. I really like Oklahoma, and I think they essentially won the offseason, even though there was a lot of teams that did fantastic things this offseason.
Yeah, John Mateer, if you haven't watched him, it was so much fun watching him late night last year at Wazoo. He plays the game like a player in the college football video game that you souped up the stats for. That's how he plays. He throws the ball so hard and he runs like a maniac. It's so much fun to watch. Will it work in the SEC? I don't know, but I'm going to be watching. And that's definitely a team that brought in a lot of talent. I see also you have a couple more here on the list. One of them I'm very interested in, and that's the fourth one you have.
Yeah. Just to go through the other ones real quick. I mean, there's Utah, right? Similar situation to Oklahoma, great defense. The offensive additions, they get the same thing where they get a quarterback offensive coordinator duo, Jason Beck and Devin Dampier from New Mexico. Dampier was phenomenal as a redshirt freshman last year. And then Penn State, they just sprinkled on some nice additions. Nothing too crazy, nothing that's going to shake the Richter scale. They added Trevor Pena from Syracuse. They hired Jim Knowles. Good stuff to like. But the one you were intrigued by is Southern Miss. Southern Miss in the Sun Belt. If you talk about what does winning in offseason mean, right? Like how much different your reality is. Southern Miss last season, one of the worst teams in college football. They won one game, fired Will Hall like 5 games into the season or whatever. Just terrible, dumpster fire. And then this offseason, Marshall football wins the Sun Belt. Charles Huff, their head coach, has the disagreement with the athletic director. He quits. He takes the job at Southern Miss. He brings 20-plus players from that Marshall roster, including the reigning Sun Belt Player of the Year, Braylon Braxton. They're all on Southern Miss now. And they are just absolutely so juiced. And it's a team that I am very confident is going to return to a bowl game. And aside from that, they could straight up contend for a Sun Belt title. So you talk about a flipping of fortunes. They went from just like down in the dumps to just literal potentially conference contention. So in terms of like winning the offseason, the most pure answer is probably going to be Southern Miss, just in terms of like where they were and now where they are.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And, the flip side of that, and we're going to talk some G5 football here a little bit before we get to the big guys, because the flip side of that is the Marshall Thundering Herd. A lot of Marshall ties in the state of Virginia and West Virginia and stuff like that, and the Hokies play them a bunch. That is going to be a very different team than the one that showed up to Blacksburg last year. I don't know if I've ever seen a roster as decimated in the offseason as what we saw from Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, there's been very few, well, not very few. There have been examples, but there have been few examples as extreme as Marshall, where it's just like after a conference title, like it wasn't like they're coming off a disappointing 5-7 season and they got an exodus. It was after a conference title, and it was pretty unfortunate to see. And you're right. I think Marshall was able to pick off the Hokies. It might have been a couple years ago, or was that just last year?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago. They let Rasheen Ali run right up the middle over and over and over and over again. Yep.
Absolutely. I remember that was Charles Huff's like signature win too. So
most coaches have their signature win against Virginia Tech.
It's true. There might be like an Old Dominion one in there in the past, and like yeah. The non-conference has not been friendly to the Hokies, but maybe they can take some solace in knowing that Marshall's going to be in a tough spot. I mean, their new head coach, Tony Gibson, does not have extensive head coaching experience. He was actually struggling over the last couple of seasons as the defensive coordinator at NC State, even though he has a great resume overall. I'm not super confident in a lot of their additions. I think they could legitimately go from first to worst. Maybe not quite that bad, but yeah, another team that's going to be in a rough spot.
Yeah, I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. That's a fan base that loves football and wants to win, but a tough place to win. Another couple teams you have on here, 2 big boys, Tennessee and Nebraska. Now, Tennessee is pretty obvious because of the Nico drama, which as an outsider college football fan, I love. That's a really juicy storyline that I want to follow. Nebraska is kind of an interesting one because that's a team that was expected to get kind of that second year jump with Matt Rule. Why do you think Nebraska had such a tough offseason?
Yeah, Nebraska is kind of my like out of the box one. Like you said, Tennessee is pretty self-explanatory. With Nebraska, I like them in the offseason too. I look at a Matt Rule coach team and I'm like, they usually make that really nice jump in year 3. He did it at Temple. He did it at Baylor. At Nebraska, we're going to see the same thing, right? I think there's a lot more factors working against him. First off, in the American and the Big 12, where he made those 2 other rebuilds, it's a lot less depth of a conference, and it's a lot easier to make that leap from like 6 or 7 wins to like the 11 wins or whatever he was doing and top 25 team, all this stuff. I think that's going to be a lot harder with how deep the Big 10 is, and their schedule is like not as easy as it was last year when they had an opportunity. I thought people are really liking the Raiola Dana Holgerson thing. They think that's going to really work for that offense because Holgerson took over as the full-time OC late last season. They're hoping that continues, but I'm really concerned about the defensive side of the football. Florida State poached their defensive coordinator, Tony White, Rule has never had that happen as a head coach, and he's never been entering a year 3 with a defensive coordinator that's been poached, or even an offensive coordinator. So I'm just really curious, genuinely curious, to see how they respond to that, because Rule hasn't really dealt with that before. And so that's just my concern, is I'm concerned that maybe defensively they'll be a little bit behind the 8 ball, and also the depth of the Big Ten. It might be a little bit more of a learning curve. Maybe we get another 6-7 Nebraska or 7-6 Nebraska season before we see that big leap.
Yeah, I mean, and also I think the Big Ten, the travel that teams have to do is a little bit underrated still. I think we saw some of those teams really struggle. And Nebraska, any road game for them is a pretty big haul. So Nebraska is certainly a team to watch. And the last one you have here is the Washington State Cougars, another team. They lost their coach. Transfer portal hurt. Not a very attractive destination for high school recruits. It's tough sledding up there on the Palouse.
Yeah, and it's tough because I really do like Jimmy Rogers, their new head coach. He was a South Dakota State guy. He brought a bunch of FCS players in. I do like that, but you just look at what they lost. I mean, losing Mateer, losing a great offensive mind like Ben Arbuckle. Like, I'm sure they wish they could have snagged Arbuckle as their head coach. Mm-hmm. And then Dickert leaving like that unceremoniously. Just everyone out the door. Reminds me exactly what happened to my Beavs last offseason before this one. So it's the same thing with Southern Miss. If you're talking pound for pound biggest loser, it probably is Washington State, just by sheer volume.
Yeah. How do you feel about the home and home in the same season with Oregon State and Washington State? I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's awesome. I love when weird college football stuff happens, and that is an example of a weird college football thing. And I just think it's representative of the times. Yeah, we're in a weird spot. We're the only 2 teams in our conference. I'm going to celebrate like we won a Pac-12 title if we win both of those games. Even if we split, I'm going to find a way, like point differential, to be like, hey, we Pac-12 champions, baby. So I'm still celebrating ours from last year.
And that's actually a pretty good segue into what we're going to talk about next, because I think the Pac-12 is uniquely positioned in that sandwich role. Like, they're right between the power conferences and the G5 conferences. There has been so much talk this offseason about what in the heck the playoff format is going to be. I got to be honest with you. I am so lost in the sauce when it comes to how they're going to seed these teams 1 through 12. Even if there are 12 teams going forward, nobody knows anything. And we even had Eli Drinkowitz, the head coach of Missouri, today at SEC Media Day, say there should have 30 teams. And he wasn't kidding. Eli Drinkowitz will say anything in front of a microphone, but what's the future of this going to be? When does it settle down is my question. I know that's an impossible question to ask you, but.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're clearly in a moment of flux. There is the expansion of the college football playoff feels like it's coming, but I think there was a report like the second SEC Media Days came where they were like, actually, we're open to like not expanding from 12 for another year, even though they were talking about as soon as next year going to 14 or 16. And part of it is they can't agree on the model, right? It's like the 5+11 debate versus the 4-4-2-2 debate. And there's just a lot of opinions out there and a lot of just leverage and lobbying. And we've seen the propaganda that goes out there. And basically the reason that there's an issue at all right now is because the Big Ten and the SEC don't see eye to eye. If they saw eye to eye, we'd have a model tomorrow and it'd be fully adopted. That just sort of feels like it's been the disconnect so far. So if I had to guess the direction we're heading, I would guess we're going to go 5+11 in maybe a year. Maybe it's delayed by a year. We don't get it till 2027. I think we're going to go 5+11. And it's going to involve either the Big Ten going to 8 conference games and then like a Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement, or it's going to involve the SEC finally caving and going to 9 conference games.
Could we call the SEC Big Ten scheduling agreement an alliance just for fun? Because ACC fans will remember the alliance with the Pac-12, which never actually happened. But then again, Virginia Tech played a conference game at Stanford last year. So maybe it did happen one way or another. And for those who don't know and who aren't as sick and twisted as Tyler and I are here, 5+11 means you have 5 automatic qualifiers and then 11 at-large bids. That makes sense with how they've currently constructed the 12-team playoff. However, I do think the SEC and the Big Ten both realize that they've kind of created a monster with how large these conferences are. And they're going to have teams, you're going to have your Alabamas and Ole Miss and South Carolina are going to get left out some years. And the Big Ten, like, I think the Big Ten is really going to struggle to get Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State all in the same year. I think that's going to be really, really tough. So I don't know where this ends up. It's probably not the decision of anybody related to college football. It's probably someone at Disney's choice and somebody at Fox and CBS or whoever's going to buy into these things. And I'm just along for the ride. I really don't know where this thing is going to end up at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of directions it can go. What I will say is the word on the street / conspiracy at this point is that basically all of the new grant of rights for like each respective conference, which includes the ACC, they're all set to either expire in 2031 or become like cheap and a buyoutable contract in 2031. I think for the ACC specifically, it's that it doesn't end until 2036, but 2031 is where like Florida State and Clemson can buy out if they want. So if you want to be a tinfoil hat doomsday guy, that's the year 2031 where seismic change is probably pending, and we'll see something pretty, unprecedented occur probably.
Yeah, all I know from the Virginia Tech angle and from some of the ACC angle is Virginia Tech really likes being in the ACC. They would really like a bigger paycheck though. And that's the issue that I think a lot of teams are going to have to decide. Like, do we want to just take the money and get beat up, or do we like being in the ACC? It's going to be a really interesting question. I also think what's interesting is the political dynamic of a lot of these state schools, especially, the reason Virginia Tech is in the ACC is because of the governor of Virginia wanted Virginia and Virginia Tech in the same conference. Do you split up UNC and NC State? Could you possibly do that? Like, crazy things are going to happen there. In 2031, like, set your calendars now, is going to be a really wild offseason. All right, we're going to do a quick ad break right here before we get into 2025. Too Deep. Hokies Under the Influence is brought to you by Rowback. I'm wearing the Rowback, wrong side, wearing the Rowback hoodie right now. I was wearing the polo last week golfing. Rowback Crave Activity, you can use code 2DEEPVT, that's 2 TWO Deep VT, for 20% off your first offer. It is the best athleisure wear, golfing, hanging out, going out, all of it. Rowback's got you. I know they have Arizona State stuff. I know they got Virginia Tech stuff. I know they have SMU stuff, Florida State, UVA, whatever you want, they got it. Rowback.com, use code 2DEEPVT for 20% off your first order. And if you've ordered something already and you already have an email, you can sign up with a different email. It's totally free. You can get your 20% off at rowback.com. All right, let's move to the 2025 season. All righty. I talked a lot about South Carolina a couple of days ago with Pete. If you haven't seen that, we did our preview show for the Virginia Tech South Carolina game a little bit early this year. That is up on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. They are being hyped up just an insane amount. I mean, they have Cam Newton at quarterback, they have Myles Garrett at defensive end, and they have Vince Lombardi at head coach. Are they a legitimate national title contender, or are they just like kind of good?
This is a question I asked myself the other day because I was making a list of the teams I thought were capable of winning a national title this year. And I suppose my answer has to be no, because they did not make the cut in that list I created, which had 13 teams on it. So I do really like a lot of the pieces they have. I love Lenore Sellers. The Cam Newton praise might be a little much at this point. I still remember how good Cam was, but Beamer ball exists, right? He always seems to outperform expectations. There was so much good last year. My thing with them, right, is last season they were literally just elite at getting after the passer. Like, they had a generational pass rush. It was unbelievable. And with that, and with Nick, I always mispronounce his name, Emmanuel, their like defensive back, he just got drafted. With that combo, they were capable of literally taking over a game just with one elite aspect of their team, an elite pass rush, and then they had an NFL defender that really helped as a defensive back as well. I'm concerned that with the losses they had, they don't get everyone back. They obviously have Dylan Stewart, but losing like the Kyle Kennards of the world and some of those other key pieces, I'm concerned that aspect of the team will not be able to sustain the same just sky high, like elite level. Maybe they do. And if they do, watch out. They could literally beat anyone on any given day. But my concern is what happens if that is not the same super elite level are the other flaws in this defense going to be realized? They did do well in the portal. They added Demon Clowney, I think, from Charlotte, and some other additions as well. Those could be remedied. But another thing with South Carolina is they've always, and this is great news for Hokies fans, they've always started the season slow under Shane Beamer. They finished really strong, but they've come out of the gate and put up some stinkers, including, I remember that loss to North Carolina in a game that was pretty hyped up. That one may have been at a neutral site too. I think that might have been
that was in Charlotte.
Yeah. So if I'm a Hokies fan.
I got some news for you. Guess who else has a tendency to start seasons pretty slow? It's going to be interesting. I mean, I think something that Pete and I have talked about is the Beamer Bowl type aspect of this, I think, means so much more for Virginia Tech than it does South Carolina. And if you're looking at like what team does this game mean more on their schedule, it's unequivocally the Hokies. I mean, South Carolina, you look at the second half of their schedule and it's like, it's like juggernaut after juggernaut after juggernaut. It's crazy. So this is the game for the Hokies until I would say all the way until they host Miami in late November. So that the Hokies probably have going for them. I don't know if that helps you block anybody on the offensive line. I don't know if that helps your DBs keep up with Nick Harbor. I don't know if that helps you tackle Lenore Sellers, but you do have that going for you. And I think it'll be a really fun time in Atlanta. And also a little plug. We have an article on the website right now, sonsofsaturday.com, that'll give you all of the information for our Saturday in the South tailgate event on the Saturday before the game at Park Tavern in Atlanta. Live music, open bar. Check that out. Other teams that you got for sneakies. We got Illinois. We have Florida with DJ Lagway. We have some other teams, maybe some Big 12 teams. I think we'll talk plenty about the Big 12. You're at Media Day, but Florida and Illinois, those are two teams that have also gotten a ton of hype this offseason.
Yeah, they really have. I'm a Florida believer. Absolutely. I buy into the Florida hype and praise. I was one of the biggest Billy Napier defenders you'll ever meet last season, and I'm glad I stuck it out with them because that was a fantastic late season turnaround. The way they were playing at the end of the year, I mean, I think they can play with anyone, play with the best of them in the SEC. Obviously, it's the same thing with Oklahoma I was talking about earlier. Schedule. You look at their schedule, it's just ridiculous. Florida's easily the toughest schedule. And then there's Illinois. I am not quite as sold on Illinois. Some people have been doing top 25, top 10, top 15 buzz, right? And that's because of their returning production. It's because they had a great record last year. They ended the year with a win over a red hot South Carolina team. A lot to like there. But I just truly do not believe they were as good as people suspected they were. They had a pair of overtime victories in the regular season over, I believe, one of them was against Rutgers, and the other one might have been versus Purdue. I think it was Purdue. And so there was a scenario where they finished with 8 wins. A team I'm higher on in the Big Ten than Illinois is Minnesota this year. Minnesota literally beat Illinois last season. They have a great returning core. They've got a even better defense, I would say. I'm not sure how hot of a take that is. But also, I don't know. It might be disrespectful to say because he did have a great year. But I'm not blown away by Luke Altmaier either. He's not a guy where I'm like, wow, he's a top-tier quarterback in the Big Ten. It's nice to have the returning production back, but I just am not seeing the leap in logic to get Illinois to be a top 10 team this year. Fringe top 25, I'll accept. I think they'll probably be maybe a step down record-wise from where they were last season.
The Illini do have a pretty favorable Big Ten schedule, which you honestly say about a lot of Big Ten teams more than you would think, but their non-conference isn't bad at all. Western Illinois at Duke is going to be a tougher game than they think, and then they have Western Michigan. They do have to travel to Indiana, but their other road games in the Big Ten are at Indiana, at Purdue, at Washington, and at Wisconsin. So they don't have to go to any of the title contenders. They get Ohio State at home, and they get USC at home. So not a terrible schedule for the Illini. Florida, on the other hand, has I don't know if you could contrive a tougher schedule than what the Florida Gators have had the last 2 years. It would actually be pretty difficult. They have so many big opportunities for wins. Can Lagway stay healthy? He absolutely needs to. Can that team keep the momentum going? They absolutely need to. They have a lot of opportunities for big wins, but this is not a Florida team that we've seen really perform at that level week in and week out for quite some time. So I like the Gators. Lagway's awesome. I'm not sold on them surviving this schedule. If they go 8-4, with the right wins, there's going to be the take that they're a top 12 team. Like that take is going to be out there.
That's absolutely true. I agree. I mean, I think that, yeah, the take will be out there. I don't trust the committee to be able to like I don't know, grade strength of schedule properly. I think the last season, even if Florida was 8-4, I don't think they would have been even in the top 25. I don't think a single 8-4 team even finished ranked last year in the committee's rankings. So the committee is very much a you are what your record says you are mentality right now. Because also not a single 9-3 team made it. I still actually did think SMU and Indiana deserved to make it over like the Bama and South Carolina and Ole Miss combo. That's a different debate, I suppose, but the committee kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think no matter how you agree on it, if you win more games, you're in a better position, no matter what the committee says. Let's talk some Big 12 ball. You're adopted Big 12 guy now. You were at Big 12 Media Days. I was in Vegas, right?
Dallas this year.
Oh, Dallas this year. Oh, that's a little bit of a step down. That kind of sucks. But hey, you got to see Dion. That's a show in and of itself. And this is maybe the wildest conference I can remember for quite some time. I could legitimately see 7 teams winning this conference.
Yeah, that's actually a mild thing to say, considering Arizona State was picked last and won it last year.
That's true.
Really, I could see 16 teams winning after what I witnessed last season. I mean, it is just a truly nuts conference, and I think it's the thing that makes it really fun. Something that some people struggle with, but I don't. It doesn't sound like you do either. Is being able to just enjoy a conference in a vacuum. Like some people are like, well, none of them are going to compete for a national title or something like that, and they can't enjoy it. And I'm like, why don't you just enjoy like the conference title race, enjoy the ride, and then all your preconceived notions. Guess what? Arizona State almost beat Texas. They were a play away from beating Texas last year. And so there goes like they can't win in these big games argument. So I think it's a blast. It's going to be such a fun conference to watch, and so many teams that could win it. I mean, when you're talking about sleeper teams in the Big 12, I feel like anytime someone asks me about a sleeper team, I say a different team every time almost, because it's just like there are so many teams and like just pure wild cards, right? Colorado loses a Heisman Trophy winner and their quarterback that bailed them out in a lot of situations. People are just going to write them off. Coach Prime has outperformed expectations in each of the first 2 years. Who's to say he doesn't do it a third time? You're talking about Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy. Whenever people are doubting him, he comes out of nowhere. Arizona was an 11-win team 2 years ago, and who knows what happens in his second year under Brent Brennan. There's just so many teams like that. Utah goes 5-7 last year. They just revamped the offense. So as a Sun Devil, that makes me weary for Arizona State, because it feels like we're in a very similar position to what Oklahoma State was in last year, where we're coming off of a conference title. In Oklahoma State's case, they were coming off a conference title appearance. But same thing, we're like, look at all the returning production. Wow, the Big 12's chaotic, but it really feels like these guys are going to, make a return trip, be really good. And then I'm just a little nervous because of that, because Arizona State has some tough road games, and there's always sneaky games in the Big 12.
Yeah, to paint the picture for people about how crazy this conference is, if you place a bet on Arizona State, Kansas State, Utah, Texas Tech, and Baylor, if you place a bet on each of those teams to win the Big 12 conference, if one of them wins it, you will still make money. That's how crazy this conference is right now. Almost every team is somewhere between 500 and plus 900 to win the conference. It is going to be a lot of fun. If you don't normally watch those teams, watch them. The stadiums are awesome. The fans are awesome. The uniforms are awesome. And you're going to have a lot of really good players. I think the quarterback play is going to be really high. I think the level of skill position talent is a lot higher than what people think it is. I'm really excited for it. I'm really high on Texas Tech this year. I think they brought in so much blue chip talent in the portal. And I think their defensive front seven is miles ahead of anybody else's offensive line, except for Utah, who might have the best offensive line in the country. I just think it's a great season. Arizona State, I mean, you can't argue with the returning production and Sam Levin and the energy that they have. And then Utah, is it like Kyle Whittingham's last ride into the sunset? Feels like an old Clint Eastwood Western or something, where he like looks way too old to be saving the day, but here he is. And Utah's got a really good team. They're going to have a fun offense. I can't wait to watch this conference. I'll probably watch more Big 12 games than ACC games this year.
Yeah, it's super entertaining. And I mean, this has got to be Whittingham's last year. Based on all of his sound bites he's putting out of media days, it basically sounded like he wanted last year to be his last year and then give Scally the head coaching job because his defensive coordinator, Morgan Scally, is like the head coach in waiting. But because the year went so terribly, he was like, I can't really end on that note. I don't want to hand off the reins in this situation. So it's just kind of funny that like he was basically, I mean, at this point in his career, he doesn't care. He's been coaching for like 20 plus years. He's like, yeah, like I kind of wanted to retire last year, but couldn't end on that note. So one last ride for the boys. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Give a lot of respect to that. Let's switch it back over to the Southeastern Conference where they get the propaganda, they get the energy. Everyone's talking about them all the time. Do they deserve it? Kind of, maybe. Yeah. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how many teams they can actually get in with this 12-team model. Because you had 3 teams on the chopping block last year, Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. And then you also had, a couple teams this year that people think could be playoff teams in LSU and Florida on top of those teams. And then you also have a team like Texas A&M, who's returning a bunch of talent in year 2 of Coach Elko. And then I'm going to say another team that you've already talked about, Oklahoma, the changes that they've made. Can the SEC get 5 teams, 6 teams in here? I mean, we've heard some crazy numbers this offseason for the SEC fans.
And we heard that last offseason too, and they only got 3. I really do not think that's going to happen in the current model with the current mentality the committee has. Some of the discussions, and I actually asked Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark specifically about this. Some of the discussions have been about changing the criteria to factor in strength of schedule more heavily. If they were to do that and something like that were to somehow go in before the season, it's not going to, then maybe that's a possibility. Because we know the SEC has like 10 of the top 15 strength of schedules in their conference because of them all playing each other, obviously. But in our current model where the committee still cares about your wins and losses, which I like to a degree, I still think they could weigh strength of schedule a little bit more heavily. I just don't think that's possible. Too many teams are going to take losses, and people, and especially the committee, which is what matters, they have a hard time overlooking losses. And they showed last year, we'll take an Indiana team that didn't schedule tough in the non-conference over, a team like South Carolina that did and played Clemson in the non-conference. So, even though South Carolina took just they did take a couple extra losses, so that can be legitimate. But bottom line, long story short, I don't think that's very likely in this model. I could see 4. Big Ten got 4 last year. When we're starting to talk about 5 or 6, it's just a numbers game, and the SEC is going to deliver a fixed number of losses in the conference, and they're not going to have enough teams that I think are unscathed.
For every team who wins an SEC game, a team has to lose an SEC game, and that is the issue that they are going to run into down south.
Unless it's a hypothetical, because the SEC doesn't lose hypothetical.
Undefeated in hypothetical, one of the greatest hypothetical programs of all time. Not to go too far back to the Big 12, but I did want to ask you about Brett Yormark, he kind of came into this role as an innovator, an outside thinker, right? How do you think he's adapted to the modern game? And is he going to be able to take the Big 12 to the heights that he wants to? Because I think that is really interesting, because we've heard rumors for a couple years now of a lot of the ACC teams maybe wanting to find their way into the Big 12 to kind of create that third mega conference that could compete financially with the SEC and Big 10. Do we think he can do some of these lofty expectations that he came in with, or is he now having a bit of dose of reality?
I don't know how likely it is in the long term, but if anyone's got a shot at it, it's definitely him. He's just extremely ambitious. The way he thinks about the sport is just that he's very cutthroat, business oriented, and he's also a very chill guy. Like he is just on top of it. And you just talk about the types of stuff he's doing, like the Friday night spotlights for the Big 12. I think that's been a great play. The marketing's been fantastic, and the way his programs are investing and like trying, the recruiting. You say what you want about the Big 12's recruiting, because it is a step behind the other power conferences. The investment has absolutely kicked up. Like programs like Baylor and Texas Tech and TCU and even Arizona State recently and UCF, their recruiting has amped up, and it really feels like the conference has definitely elevated, especially those teams, even though some people might look on paper and say, the Big 12 is clearly the 4th best power conference. That may be true, but I think their aggression and their willingness to innovate and try different things, and let's play a game in Dublin, let's look into playing on Fridays, just finding every little advantage they can. You're right, that was that crazy buzz for a little bit where it was like, could the Big 12 land Florida State and Clemson? Could that happen? something along those lines. I'm not sure if that will happen, but who knows? Maybe the Big Ten and SEC are bullish on like, we don't want to get too big, and the Big 12 takes advantage of that.
Time will tell. Again, 2031 people, set your calendars. Let's get it back to the East Coast here. This is a pretty simple question. I think Clemson is far and away the favorites in the ACC. Can anyone challenge them this year?
I think the simple answer is no. If you're just looking at like on paper, Clemson feels like a beast. It feels like a classic Clemson team this year. I think they finally, got the right offensive mind in there. Tom Allen is a great defensive mind that I think is going to continue to do a lot of the things they did well. The counter argument to that would be, hey, Clemson was at home and got smacked by Louisville at home last year, meaning either Louisville's in a position or they're vulnerable enough for other teams to step up. At which point, if we're talking about like the second tier contenders, I think there's a couple. I think you're looking at Miami, talent level wise. They're going to be a team that can go tit for tat with Clemson. I mean, on paper, actually, they technically have a more talented roster based on their average recruiting rank over the last 4 years. Louisville literally beat Clemson on their home turf. They host Clemson on a Friday night this year. It's another team that's absolutely in that combo. SMU is going to say, hey, we just made the college football playoff, guys. Like, we think we could beat Clemson if we played them again. And I think they avoid them during the – no, they don't. They don't avoid them, I don't think.
No,
I can't remember.
Let me look. Let me look real quick. I honestly, because I got to be here, SMU's been so quiet. They've been so quiet this offseason for a team that's returning a lot. They will travel to Clemson on October 18th.
So that's right. That's a tough draw. That is my birthday, though. That's a nice birthday present.
That's going to be a great game for your birthday.
It's going to be a great game. I think ASU hosts Texas Tech that week. That'll be a good one.
That's a huge – I mean, that is potentially a sleeper, like – that's potentially a sleeper, like, pseudo playoff game right there.
Yeah, it would be great. I'm hoping College Game Day comes to town. That'd be fun.
That'd be sick. Would love. I'm sure Pat McAfee will find something to do around Arizona State.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He would certainly. I'll try to see if I can lure him to a tailgate or something like that. But yeah, Miami, SMU, Louisville, and then I'd love to mention Georgia Tech in that conversation because I think they're a real dark horse. Love all the stuff they do. Love the way they're coached. The chip on their shoulder they play with. So definitely would bring them up in that combo.
If they could bring the same high level of play to every game, they could, but they have not been able to do that under Brent Key. I mean, they play to their competition more than any other team. And I mean, last year they probably should have beaten Georgia at Georgia. They also lost by multiple scores at Virginia Tech with a hobbled up Kyron Drones. Like it's a really weird dynamic that Georgia Tech has going on here. And if Haynes King can stay healthy, he's awesome. They have a lot of talent around him. They did lose some guys, but Georgia Tech is definitely a team where they have that it factor that you never know when it's going to turn on. And so I think they're a very fun team and a kind of a sleeper program. They made a really good athletic director hire, getting the associate AD out of Tennessee. So watch out for the Yellow Jackets. Let's talk a little bit of Hokies. And I think a lot of people, so many of our listeners are Hokie fans. And I mean, Pete and I, everybody else that's on Saturday, we bleed orange or maroon. So we definitely struggle to look at it from an outside view. From an outsider's perspective, what is Blacksburg looking like in the college football landscape? And do you think it has any chance of getting back to even a semblance of what it was a decade and a half ago?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about a decade, the high standard that existed that decade and a half ago, it's going to be a long haul and a long journey to get back to that. But just in terms of what they did this offseason and how they're looking this year, I actually really do like the things that they did. I thought the staff shakeup was absolutely needed. I love the sort of out of the box hire at defensive coordinator. I like Philip Montgomery, former head coach. That's a nice leader on the offensive side of the football. I feel like there's a lot less pressure on Kyron Drones this season. He's a lot less talked about. Last year, there was like preseason, whatever, top 10 quarterback in college football buzz. Now he gets to, maybe come with a little less pressure on him. Another great addition I love is Ben Bell on that defensive front, Texas State defensive lineman. Oof, that guy is a beast. So there's a lot of churn and turnover. It comes with volatility, potentially comes with risk, but overall, I really like it. And I think Brent Pry is the type of coach that I could see getting them back to that. Thus far, I would definitely give him like a C- through 2 years though. Like it feels like every single opportunity Virginia Tech has had to like arrive in the first couple of seasons, it just hasn't been there. And I can't remember. Is he going to year 4 this year or year 3?
He's going into year 4. Yeah. Year 1 was
Yes.
he didn't have a shot year 1. So that's kind of
That was like the 4-8 season or something like that, right?
Thank you for giving us an extra win. It was a 3-9 season.
There we go. Yeah. So yeah, it does. And it just has felt like every time it feels like, okay, this is a real opportunity for Virginia Tech to notch what would be like a key victory or a big, signature win. It just hasn't really happened. And they've won some games where they're supposed to win, right? Like, oh, Boston College is coming to town. We smoked them. That was the one I went to last year. That was a blast, by the way. Had a great time.
Yep.
I think Drone Strike, whenever Kyron Jones made a play, that's like my favorite like nickname or whatever you call that in college.
Yeah, that's pretty. We would hope for a lot of drone strikes. That was the game that Bashal Tune broke the school record for rushing yards in a game. He was awesome. They broke out the orange uniforms. Yeah, that was a fun. Tech is always going to win those games. If it's a night like that game against Cal that Tech hosts on a Friday night, bet the house on Tech spread. Tech's going to beat them by 4 scores. Right. I don't know about the other 11 games, but that game Tech's going to win. So I agree with you. I think Phil Montgomery was a needed experience. I mean, the Hokies, the last 4 coordinator hires made at Virginia Tech were all first-time coordinators. This finally gets somebody with some experience in. Cephas is an interesting one. I think he's a very innovative defensive mind. He does have some defensive coordinator at lower levels of college football. And then he has the NFL experience as well. Drones, if he can stay healthy, is a very good quarterback. Offensive line coach coming in from West Virginia, Matt Moore. You like that one. You feel like they got a little more talented there as well. There are some good additions. And then you have like Ben Bell and James Johnson and all those guys in the defensive line they're bringing in. So there's some room for positivity, but all of my preseason hype is gone. Like I just need you to win games on Saturdays at this point.
It feels like the honeymoon phase is definitely over, and more than like positivity to pull away from a competitive loss, you do need to see the wins happen. And it's very interesting that, right. I don't know how far distance wise it is. I was about to say right down the road, but at Virginia, what's the distance like there? I don't know.
It's 2 hours. They're on the same interstate. Yeah.
So right down the road works in this case. It's very interesting that Tony Elliott is also in a very critical year. He has a much different approach. He actually has the exact same coordinators that he had from the moment he stepped on campus. So you're seeing sort of the difference in philosophy where Brent Pry is like, hey, it's year 4. This hasn't been working. Let's shake it up. And Tony Elliott's like, hey, it's year 4. We're this close to breaking through. Let's run it back. And I'm sure, the Hokies faithful are hoping that the answer for the Cavs is that everything's going to fall apart this year. And it certainly hasn't been a problem playing them head to head.
No, it hasn't. That's been the one good thing that's been consistent throughout pretty much my entire life at this point. Yeah. So it is interesting. I think they're an interesting team to watch. We see this in college football all the time where it's like the year after the year is when a team pops up like Oklahoma State. That's kind of what happened with them. And we'll see what the Hokies look like this year. Two big opportunities against SEC teams on a neutral site game against Carolina, and then the home night game against Vanderbilt for a little bit of revenge in that one, which would be really, really sweet to win that game. I never thought I'd be so fired up for a Vanderbilt game. But
yeah, which that one was so unique too, because I'm not a Virginia Tech fan, but that loss when it happened, because we didn't know how good Vandy was at that point, that was depressing. That was like, oh my goodness, like this was supposed to be our year, and we just lost to Vandy.
That was tough.
Definitely had to have been therapeutic to watch them take out Bama after that, but
yeah, a little bit. But again, like I think it's going to be a really interesting season, and you like you said, Brent Pry's had some opportunities in the first few years to get that signature win. He's given 2 opportunities on a silver platter right here to start the season. We'll see what happens with the Hokies. Let's round it out with some G5 talk. Boise State, I think, is far and away the favorite to make the playoff out of the G5 teams. I mean, they're the most talented, returning quarterback, good defense, easy schedule. They do play that game at Notre Dame, which I think is really interesting because if we take the committee's precedent for those games, like when they played at Oregon last year, that's just a plus. If they are competitive in that game, it's going to be a win for the Broncos.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's going to be the main game the committee's watching. As long as Boise State is able to win all those other Mountain West games and look pretty, they're not going to pay too much attention outside of that, given the casual nature of the committee. But yeah, absolutely. If we're talking about Boise State versus the field, I'm rocking with the Broncos right now because of the factors you talked about. Their schedule in the Mountain West is advantageous enough. There's a lot of schools shuffling around. UNLV's breaking in a new coach. Colorado State's in a transition year. San Diego State's in limbo right now. Fresno State's breaking in a new coach. Like all those other routine top contenders are kind of in a flux. And so Boise State's the heavy favorite again. Yes, they have no generational Ashton Genty, but they've got a pretty deep, pretty awesome running back room still, and like multiple all-conference defenders. So they'll be in a great spot this year. Spencer Danielson's fantastic coach. And that Notre Dame game, like you said, it gives them just like an extra edge. So and then there's the built-in committee bias already and just brand bias of knowing Boise State. They'll be in the preseason AP poll. They'll continue to rise. And then by the time it's time for the committee rankings, they'll be like, oh, Boise State's like 13th over there. Should we put them up over here? So they've got that working in their favor as well.
Yeah, I definitely think the brand of Boise State is attractive to that bracket. And so many college football fans want to watch Boise State football. They're not going to want to watch Memphis or South Florida or Tulane as much as they will Boise State. Although I do think that Memphis and Tulane and South Florida are pretty good teams going into this year. And there are some other ones as well. I've told my Hokie friends, be really prepared for James Madison to be in the playoff conversation. That's going to be really annoying, but you need to be ready for it. I also think, again, Tulane, Summerall's a very good coach. They have some talent. They had a lot of turnover, but that's a program that's just kind of tended to reload over the past 3 or 4 years here. So I like the green wave there as well. All right, let's wrap things up as we get to some big topics to wrap things up. And I'll actually save this one for the end. I'll go to Heisman right now. Who's your Heisman favorite as of right now? Tonight is July 17th.
July 17th. Doesn't matter what day it is because it's going to be right no matter what. Garrett Nussmeier, as I like to call him, the gumbo gunslinger. I just really love the vibe of an LSU veteran quarterback returning for one more season because of recent bias, obviously, with Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow. But I always thought Nuss was ready for a leap. And the fact that he had to sit behind Jaden Daniels for a year, or got to, and then I think he's just going to have another year to gel with his OC. And it's going to be great. And I'm very excited to see him go out there and perform. They equipped him with some weapons. They really went and gunned for some offensive linemen in the portal. I think he's going to look great. I think he's going to have opportunities to put up the numbers, which is required. And I think he's going to have opportunities in some really big games on some big stages, which is a very important aspect to that award. So my stock is in on Garrett Nussmeier. Obviously, keep an eye on Cade Klubnik this year. Keep an eye on Jeremiah Love. But Nuss would be my pick right now.
Yeah, I think I'm going Jeremiah Love. Running back from Notre Dame. I think he's the best running back in the country. He's so explosive. He's going to have home run plays. Old journalists who vote on this love watching Notre Dame football. So you have that for him as well. And I do think they're going to be not as good as last year. I think they do take a little bit of a step back, but certainly a playoff team, certainly a team that will be in some big games. And he is really good and really fun to watch. So I'm going to go Jeremiah Love right now. He has a little bit of Vegas value as well.
My only concern with Love would simply be that he was not healthy at the end of last year. And I think he'll be healthy at the start of this year, but I could see Notre Dame getting more conservative with his usage, especially because they've got Jadarian Price. They've got a deep backfield. They got a lot of backs they can feed the rock to. Wasn't necessarily a problem last year. He still got to like 1,400 yards or whatever it was. And then also, I think CJ Carr is going to be a better passer than Riley Leonard.
Really?
I think they'll have a better passing game this year. I think this is kind of my hot take. I think this is going to be the best quarterback we've ever seen in a Marcus Freeman Notre Dame team. So I would watch out for CJ Carr to spark that passing game, and maybe that means Notre Dame runs the football a little less. It's the only reason why I'd be hesitant, but still, he's obviously going to get a lot of carries. He'll be in that conversation, and he'll have the moments to shine as well.
Great name too, Jeremiah Love. Going to look good on that navy jersey with the gold helmet. All right, most fun team to watch this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with FAU, and I decided to go with this team because I know not many people have FAU written down as a team to watch, but something that they did that was very important this offseason is they added Zach Kittley as their head coach. Kittley, like 4 or 5 years ago, was a coordinator at the FCS level. He's one of the fastest rising head coaches in football. He's like in his 30s or something like that. He's a young guy too, and he went and landed Western Kentucky's top quarterback and obviously top quarterback, starting quarterback, and one of their top receivers, Caden Veldkamp, Easton Messer. Some key names to remember. I don't know if you do college fantasy or if you're betting. Don't know why those balloons just went off.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, but yeah, go. If you're watching on YouTube, you saw a bunch of balloons pop up.
Yeah. I accidentally triggered it with like a hand signal or something. But honestly, it's appropriate because that's fun to watch, and FAU will be fun to watch this year. They're not going to play much defense either, which it's never fun to watch defense. You just watch offense all day. So there you go.
Yeah, my most fun. Don't sleep on Western Kentucky. They brought in a bunch of really fun guys from Abilene Christian. They're going to throw the ball a bunch. Watch out for those guys. They're going to be really fun. And then the whole Big 12. Just watch Big 12 football. Trust me, it's going to be a blast. Most improved team year over year.
Before I get to most improved, shout out Maverick McIver, the coolest name in college football for Western Kentucky. Yes. And that's something Tyson Helton's done before. I think it was Houston Christian last time. This was like 5 years ago or something. And it was like Bailey Zappi. Mm-hmm. He just literally took everyone from like Houston Christian, and he's just doing it again with Abilene Christian. So it's a pretty funny thing to watch happen. But most improved, I'm just going to be a little redundant, I guess, and loop back to Oklahoma. I really think the upside is there. I think we'll see a big leap from last year. And yeah, I mean, I guess there's a reason that I said they won the offseason, and I think they'll be one of the most improved. You could also talk about like Utah or Southern Miss in that conversation as well.
I'm going to go Texas Tech on most improved. I think people need to get ready for that team to look like an SEC team when they play football. How will it work out in the wins and losses? I think they have some question marks, but they got some dudes. They got some dudes in the front seven. They got some dudes at wide receiver. Watch out for the Red Raiders. Most regression team year over year.
Yeah, this is where I rocked with Marshall. They just got hit so hard that I just think we're going to see a lot of regression there. I talked about Washington State earlier. They got hit too, but I like their hire in Jimmy Rogers. I just don't like the hire with Marshall. So Marshall.
Yeah, I'm going to go Syracuse. They lost so much. I think they spent quite a bit of money last year on the transfer portal, and then they are kind of taking a year off and then maybe going to spend again or maybe do some basketball recruiting and stuff. They're not going to be able to year over year compete like they did. I think Fran Brown is a really interesting and fun coach, and I think he'll win a lot of games. I don't know how long he'll be in upstate New York, though. But Syracuse, big drop down year over year for the Orange. Best storyline of the season. I don't think it's hard to argue with your answer here.
Yeah, I rocked with North Carolina for mine. I mean, just everything on the field and off the field, right? You got Bill Belichick, you got Jordan Hudson, and no, I'm not talking about the SMU wide receiver. I'm talking about Bill Belichick's Jordan Hudson.
How's that guy got to feel right now?
I feel bad for him. I was like, man, like he's probably his SEO right now is through the floor because anytime people look it up, even if you look up Jordan Hudson with an A because that's how his name's spelled. It just is like, did you mean Jordan Hudson, the Bill Belichick girlfriend? And I'm like, wow, that is tough. Like that's gonna hurt like his like NFL scouting or whatever. Anyways, yeah, it's got to be North Carolina. It's Bill Belichick, and I also think. I'm sure you're aware of this. If you look at their schedule dynamics, my goodness,
it's a cupcake shop.
So advantageous, Unreal. A literal bakery. And yeah, I'm just excited to see him play. I think they're going to have a great defense. And I love Gio Lopez, the quarterback they added. He was an animal for South Alabama last year. So I think they've got some real upside. So it could be interesting. A team that's going to get so much publicity being genuinely good and genuinely in like playoff contention.
Yeah, I agree. Like they're going to be a really interesting team for so many reasons. This is a cop-out, but I'm going to go Texas and Arch Manning because it's just so perfect. And it's so like, there's something very almost nostalgic about it. Like the 5-star quarterback who sat behind the veteran and now he gets his chance and he's playing at Texas. And like, I don't know, like there's just people like to hate on that stuff and root for people to fail. I'm kind of rooting for him to be awesome because he seems like a great dude. He dressed like a frat pledge at media days. It was hilarious. And now he's like trying to lead Texas to a national title game, right? I think it's a really interesting storyline. I hope he plays well. That brings us to the national title prediction. Again, July 17th, time for this to change. But who you got in the Natty and who's taking it home?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this a little bit. But if I were to be forced to pick one right now, I think my pick would be Texas over Penn State in the national title. I do really like Arch Manning. I think he'll be ready. He's looked great in the times he's been out there. The Texas defense is pretty nasty still, despite what they've lost. They've got questions in the offensive line. A lot of top contenders have questions. Penn State's got the continuity, but for some reason, aesthetically, at least for now, I can't bring myself to pick them to win just because of what I've seen in those big games, despite the addition of Jim Knowles as defensive coordinator, despite all the returning contributors. For now, I'm going to pick Texas.
I think that's a good pick. I'll save mine for a little bit. I'm going to wait till fall camp. I think if I had to pick teams in the semifinals, I think Penn State and Texas would certainly be up there. I think people need to be ready for Clemson to be back to that level of play. And I also think people need to be ready for Alabama to be back to that level of play. Maybe the best defense in the country at Alabama. Do they have the quarterback thing figured out? I don't know. But
I see how it is. You make me put out bulletin board material. You just save yours. You save yourself.
Well, if I had to put one right now, give me Penn State over Clemson. But that's just right now.
Okay.
That's just right now. That has plenty of time to change. I can change that. The bet has not been placed. I'll put it that way. Dude, this has been amazing. I like if you don't follow him at CFBudge, like you do such a good job of talking about the like easy to consume like all the graphics and stuff you see on there, but you put your own spin on it. You're not just copying and pasting and doing the like aggregation stuff. Like you give credit to people, you talk about it, you know ball. It's really interesting. So go follow you, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You do a great job, man. I enjoy watching them. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's always awesome to come on and talk college football. Very excited for the season to get here.
All right. Well, that'll do it. Please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Check out the website, sonsaturday.com/VT. We'll have a ton of stuff coming up there. I have to write my model article for this year, which is a couple weeks behind. So I'll get the program power rankings model article up here in a few weeks. And that'll do it for everyone here at Sons of Saturday. Have a good night. Go Hokies.